Okay, lot. So today we are gonna be covering some of the best 4-star units in Rememento White Shadow. Now, if you look at the roster, there are a bunch of 4-star units in the game, and actually a lot of them are really good. I would only say like maybe 4 or 5 of these I would never consider using for any like serious business, right? Like I'm talking this, usually this, right? Some of these I don't use, right? But a lot of other 4-star units I regularly use in a lot of content. And mostly, right, for this video, this is mostly aimed at a PvE perspective, right? Because in PvP, there's a very like distinct meta around certain units, so 4 stars aren't too great there. But I'm mostly gonna be covering PvE aspects of the game and showcase you the 3 4-star units that I think will be the most impactful in your game, and that I would highly recommend building, because you will be using them more and more as you progress through the game, right? And yeah, as I said, there are a lot of different good picks, but I think that these 3 are like the clear standouts for using them even more than any other 4-star out there, right? And yeah, I don't want to leave any of them out. Some of them are amazing, right? I would regularly use at least like 7, 8 or 8 4-star units in this list, but the third best 4-star unit in my opinion is THEODORE. And just a quick disclaimer for this video, I'm mostly gonna be talking about various aspects of how you use a unit, so there will be a little bit less gameplay footage, right? Not just like overlaid over while I'm talking, right? But I'll try to explain the concepts of how you use his skills and all of that with a little bit of a showcase later on, right? And yeah, let's get started with THEODORE, right? I think he is the third most impactful 4-star in this game, and for THEODORE, his passive and his basic attacks are something you shouldn't pay too much attention to, right? It is a decent tool for him to survive a little longer, right? But the main aspects that you want to be using in PvE is the first skill by far, right? And in a way, a little bit the second skill as well, right? So if we look at the first skill, damage one enemy for 166, right? Multiplier we don't really care about. If you build him on good defense, he can dish out decent damage, right? For example, on this build, if he's able to crit and the enemy has a defense break, he usually is able to do around like 3,000 to 4,000 damage. So the damage is definitely still there, right? But you're not using him for damage, you're using this for this 75% chance to taunt an enemy for 1 turn. And taunt, especially against very difficult bosses, is an extremely broken tool, right? He is not the only taunt unit in the game, right? There are other taunt units, however his taunt is the cheapest and the most reliable, right? Because for this skill, it is a 1 mana skill. For example, Rave also has a taunt. However, first of all, once you skill up, of course, the chance is the same at 75%. However, this is a 2-turn taunt, right? It is an AoE taunt, so if you do need an AoE taunt, it is the cheapest AoE taunt out there. But in most cases where you use THEODORE, you will only need a single target taunt. A lot of high-level PvE content is single target bosses only, right? And with this taunt, you are able to completely disable a boss by preventing him from doing various debuffs and various effects, right? Okay, and for content where you use THEODORE, right, the main use for him, in my opinion, is the subjugation, right? He is, depending on the boss, of course, he is able to completely shut down the damage, right? And as long as you provoke the enemy, he will only be hitting THEODORE. Some bosses will have a basic attack that is an AoE as well, right? In that case, I would recommend you bring some sort of a small healer that can be in the form of for example, Chloe, right? You won't need to heal every single turn, but every like 2 or 3 turns, you can just pop a second skill and it will top you up fine. You can use something like Her. In that case, you won't even need to use skills at all. Her passive will do enough healing. Or another option is if you really want to go premium, Anna's is decent as well. She can bring an attack buff and she can bring up a little bit of a top up, right? So yeah, Subjugation is the main place where you want to be using him. For other places, you can also bring him into TOA or Abyss, I guess. I still use TOA from another game. Especially the hard mode dungeons. Not every level will work with Theodore, right? But a lot of them you can completely counter by just bringing him and lowering the damage that the boss does. So yeah, he works really well there. And if you are still struggling with farming equipment, you can bring him into one of these dungeons and manually provoke with the first skill. That way you will prevent pretty much all of the damage from happening. So I'm gonna go into a fire stage, for example, right? This is the team that I'll be using. Theodore, Sasha for damage, Stein for the attack buff, and I'm gonna be using Ravi for the defense break, just so Sasha is able to do a little bit more damage, right? As you can see, I am not bringing any healer in here. All I'm bringing is Theodore, and the reason for that is I am pretty confident that Theodore alone is going to be able to sustain all of the damage. I also have a Rememento on him, which gives him a small amount of shield after every hit. Plus, remember, when he drops to low HP, he will be able to just heal up. And look at that, provoke. This line would have, I think he has like a self-buff ability at first, and then he has a very, very nasty AoE ability. You provoke, and he really can't do much after that, right? And I'm gonna probably beat the stage pretty quick because Sasha's damage is a little ridiculous in here. But yeah. So essentially, right, I'm doing this live, so it's a bit hard talking and playing at the same time, but essentially, as long as your Theodore doesn't miss his provoke, you will be golden, right? If you use other buffers such as Stein or Diana in the same team, and if you notice that, for example, maybe Theodore missed a provoke, right? If they move right after, in this case, for example, if Theodore misses a provoke right now, right, you can still buff Theodore with one of your attack gauge buffers and give him another turn to make sure that he provokes. In this case, because the guard is broken, I usually would avoid provoking, right? So I would either basic attack, or if I have some sort of like danger from the boss, I would sometimes use the second skill for the shield as well, right? It really depends on the boss that you are fighting. But yeah, as long as you have that provoke up, and fair warning, right? When you're using Theodore, he is a very manual only unit, right? He is not smart on order, right? Because on order, he will use the ultimate, right? Ultimate is all fine, it's a good ability. But after that, he will start using his second skill, which is a good ability, but not exactly what you're using for. Okay, in this case, as you can see, he missed the provoke. What I would do is, I can see that Stein is moving twice, right? So I'm gonna buff with the first turn, and then I'm gonna boost Theodore with her second boost, right? And that way I'll be able to hopefully provoke again, right? The provoke is not 100%, right? You have to remember. Actually, in this case, I don't even have to provoke. I could just basic attack because the guard is broken anyway, right? But yeah, for next turn, again, I have provoke. I instantly know that the boss is not doing any damage pretty much, right? And yeah, I can just finish off the boss with the remaining damage that I have. So yeah, very simple concept with Theodore, right? As long as you provoke the boss and as long as you have some sustain, if you see that he's doing too much damage, you will be able to completely shut down the boss's damage and prevent your whole team from taking a lot of damage as well, right? And now the second most important 4-star unit in this game for you to build, in my opinion, right, will be Pluto. So majority of you will usually already have Pluto and you will be using her, right? So I definitely won't surprise you with anything new in terms of her skills, right? But the main skills you want to be looking at, right? Basic attack, it's whatever, right? First skill can be somewhat useful, right? Depending on the enemy you fight. It only increases guard damage, and I know some people have been a little confused about what guard damage is. It's essentially the little shield bar that you see besides the HP bar, right? And what that does is if that guard drops to 0, right, the enemy will not be able to move for that turn. And it only drops if you are using with element advantage. So for example, if the boss was a fire element, as we've seen in the previous fight, right, with THEODORE, water units will be able to damage the card, right? Not any other unit. But yeah, coming back to Pluto, for her skills, right, this can be clutch, but really not the main skill you're looking for. Second skill and her ultimate are where she really shines, right? She also has a decent passive, but I mean, it activates really rarely, right? So yeah, second skill, AoE defense break, and then third skill, AoE increased attack. I don't know why it says increased offense. It's increased attack and increased critical chance. So just these two skills alone for any attack based damage dealer are gonna be an absolutely massive damage boost that will boost your damage if you combine both of them at least like 2 times from if he attacked without either of these happening, right? So when you make a Pluto build, right, I've tested her out on like a regular tank build, then I switched around a bit. I found that effect hit is very, very important to have on her, right? Because she doesn't really do damage, she doesn't really need massive amounts of tankiness, right? Because she's not actively taking hits. I would highly recommend dedicating the slot 5 equipment to getting an effect hit. As you can see, mine is not perfect, it's just like random speed, random defense subs. But yeah, dedicate that to effect hit, because trust me, the difference in how much defense break she lands when you have a high effect hit and when you don't have high effect hit is absolutely massive, and it saved me a lot of head hits, right? So definitely go for effect hit rate. For the mementos, there are a few decent options, right? So for a lot of supports, in my opinion, this is by far the best memento, right? You can get it from either the regular banner pity shop, or you can get it from the battle pass shop. This is a memento that I would highly recommend buying, even if you don't have a specific unit to use it on, right? In my opinion, this is by far the best supported memento. So yeah, this would give her essentially free mana cycling. Another good option is the where is it real quick, this one, right? Increases speed as well as gives a chance to recover mana when the enemy moves, right? Very similar to this one, but it's more for when enemies cycle turns rather than when you cycle turns. So again, very good on Pluto. And for the rest, really, I mean, depends on what you have at that point. Francis, the memento is pretty good. Her the memento is relatively good if you want to sort of like cycle your attack buff a lot. And of course, a signature the memento is not bad as well. And now for Pluto, where I mostly use her at is just regular miscellaneous PvE content, right? So such as stamina dungeons, all of that, right? She's really nice in there to buff up my Sion, which will be able to wipe a lot of units, right? And the second most important thing I use her for is the Abyss Corridor, right? Especially the hard mode. I use her in pretty much every team. As you know, Abyss Corridor requires you to use 2 different teams at once, right? At least the hard mode. So for this one, she pops into every team because one of the teams that I use is essentially a high DPS team. And Pluto is able to do the most DPS due to her being an attack buffer and a defense breaker in one unit, right? And yeah, here's a little showcase of one of the Abyss Corridor levels. So for example, the team I use here is Diana, Sasha, Pluto, and Ivy. I think I may have showed this particular fight in the Ivy review, but if I didn't, you can see, you can get another showcase of Ivy, I guess, right? And yeah, the general principle here is Diana and Pluto are here to buff up Sasha's damage, right? I don't use Sasha's nuke on turn 1. At first, I'm trying to set it up, right? So what I'm doing is, first of all, buff up with Pluto's ultimate, then try to defense break. If you see that you miss a defense break, sometimes it's better to just restart the fight, right? And once you set it up, look at the damage that you are able to achieve with some of your DPS units, right? Yeah, once you set it up perfectly, right, Pluto is a huge booster, right? because her ultimate lasts 3 turns, second skill lasts 2 turns, you usually can get 2 nukes off, so like usually an ultimate plus another ability, in which case this time it will be Sasha's second skill, which I believe will be able to kill the boss in here, right? Yeah, so very easy to set up, right? She is a bit mana hungry, I'll give you that much, right? She does use a lot of mana, but if you do have a little bit extra mana cycling in there, in this case Diana is able to lower the mana costs a bit, plus the mementos are also contributing to mana a bit, you will be able to achieve amazing results with Pluto as your main damage enabler, right? And now, in my opinion, the best, the most influential 4-star unit in this game that you will use pretty much everywhere, right, in terms of PvE, and she also works in some PvP scenarios as well, right? That is Stein or SHUTEIN, whatever you want to call it. She has 2 different names. But yeah, Stein, absolutely OP unit. I actually only recently discovered what she can do, really, right, to her full potential. I haven't been using her for the first few months of the game, but once I tried out some combos that she has, trust me, she is absolutely disgustingly broken, right? For equipment, very standard support equipment, you want as high speed as possible, right? You don't want to overdo it, of course, but you do want to have very high speed on her for a very simple reason I'll explain in just a second. Also, with her first skill, she does have a debuff, which essentially, these translations are really bad. Hit reduced. Basically, it's a chance to miss, and a chance to miss means that you are less likely to land the debuff, as well as less likely to land a critical hit, right? So this is a very, very good tool for lowering the boss's abilities a bunch, right? So for that reason, I also started using effect hit as a main stat on her slot 5, right? Previously I was using just HP or defensive thing on here, but trust me, that effect hits does come in clutch in a lot of cases, so I would recommend putting some effect hit on her as well. For her other skills, right, you are using her for first skill occasionally, right, but the rest of the 3 skills, especially her passive, are absolutely must, right? Okay, so first of all, second skill restores 50% attack gauge to one ally of your choice and grants reduced mana cost for 1 turn. Essentially, the next skill will cost less mana, so if the skill costs 1 mana, it will be 3, and if it will be 2 or 3, it will just be 1 lower. Ultimate, increased attack and increased defense for 3 turns. In this case, you are able to pretty much permanently keep up not only an offensive buff, but a defensive one as well, which is huge when fighting a lot of boss content in PvE. And her passive is, her passive might be the best thing about her. Every 3 of your turns, you regain 3 mana. Right, if you want to make full potential of it, try to calculate which turn it is in your head, right? That way you can ease up some combos that you have. But yeah, I'll showcase you how I use her in just a second. For her, the Memento, very similar to Pluto, right? The main one I use on her is this, right? Because if you think about it, you recover 1 mana at the start of combat and 25% chance to recover 1 mana when you move, right? She does have an attack bar boost, which she can boost herself with, which means that, remember, you're getting 3 mana every 3 turns, which is essentially 1 free mana every turn, right, on average, plus you're getting mana from this, plus the next turn you take will cost 1 less mana. You can sort of picture the insane amount of magic generation she will have, and when I use her, I usually am stocked up on the maximum 10 mana just from her alone, right? But yeah, the mementos, get this if you can. If you cannot, again, this is a good option as well, right? It's more of an option if the opponent moves more rather than you move more, but it also works as well. And after that, the standard ones, Ferranzi is good, her signature is good, her the memento is decent as well, right? Anything to give you more turns. And to showcase Stein and especially her mana cycling abilities, again, I'm gonna go into one of the subjugation stages, but for content where she does work, honestly, like, I'm not even joking when I say this, everywhere, right? On order, she has very good AI in my opinion, right? At first, she will always buff up with her ultimate, which is, like, I mean, the most important skill in order to do more damage, prevent more damage, right? All of that. After that, she will always use her second skill on a unit that I believe is either the highest damage or the lowest HP. In either case, it's usually your main DPS, right? So for example, if I use her with Sion, she will always buff Sion. If I use her with Beatrice as my main damage dealer, she will always use Beatrice. On order, she is able to cycle your main DPS unit a lot, right? Which, again, very good interaction there. But for other content, Subjugation, of course, I use her in every single one, all 5 of them. As you can see, level 10, I use them in all of that. I use her in a lot of stamina dungeons, especially the more difficult ones, such as the equipment farming one. Absolutely OP here, pretty good even in the wind element one as well. I use her in Abyss Corridor, right? Insane mana cycling there as well. The defense buff is really important in this content. And I use her in every single of these as well, right? So yeah, let's go into Subjugation. I'll showcase you the battle, let's say against a light element. This is the team that I will be bringing, so Ivy, just a little bit of extra showcase of Ivy attack bar reduction, right? So the plan here is I'm not bringing THEODORE, I'm not bringing any healers. The whole strategy is keep reducing attack bars with Ivy and then do damage with Sasha, right? And for the other two, they are there to cycle mana, they are there to cycle turns, and make sure that Ivy is able to consistently reduce attack bars. I might not show the whole battle because it will be a little bit longer since I don't have any like defense break or anything like that. But yeah, I'm just gonna show you a little bit of a concept of how it works. So yeah, with Ivy, again, very simple strategy. You just keep spamming that second skill. Ignore the first skill, ignore the ultimate, right? Those are not that good in my opinion. You just want to be spamming those. With Diana, when using Ivy, if you are able to land a slowness debuff with Diana, it's gonna be absolutely massive because as you can see, in that case, a lot of your units are able to just straight up lap her. And yeah, this is where we start using Stein to her full potential. You don't want to be buffing any other units, you want to be buffing her. As you can see, last turn I had 3 mana, I'm already at 5. Again, every time I get turns, I'm gonna get more and more mana, which is absolutely insane. Right, I don't have any like specific mana increasers, all I'm using is Stein to cycle it, right? And for those who have used Ivy a bit, you know that she is super mana hungry unit, right? 2 mana every turn, and because she gains attack bar from her steal, right? She instantly gets a turn even more often. So yeah, this helps out with Ivy a lot. I was at 1 mana, again, as you can see, I'm back on 5 mana, just because Stein's passive worked out. I think here and there her Rememento will sort of like activate as well. But yeah, if you see that your Ivy is able to consistently decrease it, you can buff yourself. If you see that your Ivy misses, for example, you can think about, in this case I'm not gonna nuke because I see that Diana's ultimate is coming up, so I would prefer to have that. But yeah, very simple strategy, so I'm just gonna finish off this battle, I guess, and yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed. If you do need some tips on the game, whether maybe you have some questions about how these units work in more detail, right, feel free to leave them in the comments. And yeah, I'm gonna leave you off with a sped up version of this fight. And yeah, hope you enjoyed, and peace.